Your dog has 24 hours to leave, or I'm taking you to court. Karen screamed at my doorstep while I sat in my wheelchair, my service dog Max pressed against my leg. Without Max, I couldn't even leave my house. But Karen didn't care. That day, I had no idea this woman would turn my life into a living hell, or that her fraud scheme against HOA President Barbara would land her in federal prison. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 32 years old, and I live in the Riverside Meadows community. 3 years ago, I was in a car accident that changed everything. The crash damaged my spinal cord, and I lost the ability to walk. My entire world turned upside down, but over time, I adjusted to my new normal. Without Max, this process would have been so much harder. Max is my Cervestoga, 2-year-old golden retriever. He's not just a pet, he's my independence, my freedom. He opens doors, retrieves items I drop, brings me my medication, and even calms me down during panic attacks. Without Max, I'd struggle with even the most basic tasks of daily life. When I moved to Riverside Meadows, everyone was so kind. My neighbors were helpful, and the HOA president, Barbara Reynolds, was especially supportive. Barbara was in her mid-60s, a retired social worker. She had short gray hair, a gentle smile, and was always ready to help others. "Sarah, we want you to feel at home here," she said when we first met. "If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask. Our community is inclusive, and we work hard to make sure everyone lives comfortably." The first 6 months were peaceful. My neighbors loved Max, especially my neighbor across the street, elderly Mr. Henderson, who brought Max carrots every morning. "This dog is an angel," he'd say with a smile. "Takes better care of you than most people would." Then Karen Westbrook moved into the house across the way. Karen was in her early 40s, with sharp features, always perfectly made up, and dressed in expensive clothes. Her platinum blonde hair was always flawlessly styled. Her husband David was quiet and timid-like. He lived in Karen's shadow. They had 2 children, 12-year-old Emma and 9-year-old Jake. From the first day Karen moved into the neighborhood, problems started. She complained about how neighbors parked, got annoyed by children playing, and interfered with everyone's lawn mowing schedules. But her real problem started with Max. A week after moving in, Karen knocked on my door. When I opened it, she stood there with a forced smile. "Hello, Sarah. I'm Karen. We moved in across the street. I wanted to meet you." "Hi, Karen. Welcome. Would you like to come in?" Karen looked inside the house and saw Max. Her smile vanished instantly. "Does that dog live here?" "Yes. This is Max. He's my service dog. He's very gentle. Don't worry." Karen's face tensed. "I don't like dogs. I'm allergic. And honestly, dogs shouldn't live in a community like this." A warning bell went off in my head. Karen, Max is a legally protected service animal. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, I know the laws. Karen cut me off sharply. "But that doesn't mean I have to live near a dog. Maybe you should consider moving somewhere else." I was shocked. "I'm sorry, but this is my home, and Max isn't just a pet. He's my medical necessity." Karen rolled her eyes. "Medical necessity? Of course, everyone can make their dog a service animal these days. You get a fake certificate online and boom, the dog can go anywhere." My anger began to rise, but I tried to stay calm. Max is a real service dog. He is professionally trained and has all his certifications. I need him every day to survive. "Whatever," Karen said, waving her hand dismissively. "Just keep your dog away from me. And don't let him bark. I value my peace and quiet." Max never barked, but I didn't feel the need to tell Karen that. She had already turned and was walking away on her heels. That night, my neighbor, Mr. Henderson, visited me. "Sarah, did you meet Karen?" he asked, worriedly. "Yes, she came by today. She wasn't very friendly." Mr. Henderson nodded. "Be careful with her. She's been fighting with everyone since she moved into the neighborhood. She complained that my grass was too long. Said, Señora Chun's garden decorations were ostentatious. She claimed the Peterson family's kids were too noisy." "Are you serious?" "Unfortunately, yes. And the worst part is, She keeps filing complaint petitions to HOA. President Barbara is patient, but Karen is wearing her down. Mr. Henderson was right. Over the following weeks, Karen's true character emerged. Every day brought a new complaint, a new problem. When I was in the front yard with Max, Karen would watch us from her window with a disgusted expression on her face. One day when Max made a small barking sound he'd just seen a squirrel, Karen immediately rushed outside. "Shut your dog up! I'm working from home, and I need to concentrate." Karen, he only barked for a second. He saw a squirrel. "I don't care. That dog is noise pollution. HOA rules don't allow excessive noise. Max isn't a noisy dog. In 3 years, I've hardly ever heard him bark." "You're lying. He barks every day." "I hear him." This was clearly untrue, but there was no point arguing with Karen. I turned and went inside, feeling my heart rate accelerate. The next day, I found a letter in my mailbox, an official complaint notice from the HOA. Karen had complained about Max's constant barking and disturbing community. Peace. I immediately called Barbara. "Sarah, I'm sorry about this," Barbara said, her voice genuinely apologetic. "Karen filed an official complaint petition. According to procedure, I had to notify you." "But Barbara, Max doesn't bark. These claims are completely false." "I believe you. I get complaints from Karen every day about other neighbors too. Honestly, I think this woman just likes causing trouble. But as HOA president, I have to document every complaint. What do I need to do?" "Nothing for now. We need to document Karen's claims. But don't worry, I'm on your side and Max's. That dog is an angel." Barbara's support was comforting, but I didn't think Karen would stop. I was right. The following week, Karen intensified her campaign. When I went out for morning walks with Max, she'd video us with her phone. Sagging, she was collecting evidence. Even when Max didn't make a sound. One day, while sitting in the front yard with Max, Karen's children Emma and Jake came over. "Can we pet Max?" Emma asked, hesitantly. "Of course. Max is very gentle." The children laughed as they petted Max. Max wagged his tail, enjoying their affection. Emma said excitedly, "He's so soft, and he looks so smart." Then Karen's voice cut through the air. "Emma, Jake, get away from that dog right now." The children startled and pulled back. Karen came running from across the street, her face red with anger. "I told you not to touch that dog. It's dangerous." "Mom, but he's so—" Jake started. "Quiet. Home. Now." The children walked away with their heads down. Karen turned to me. "Keep that beast away from my children." "Karen, Max is a certified service dog. He's not dangerous. Your children approached him. I don't care. If you come near my children again, I'll report you for negligence." Karen turned and left, leaving me in shock. This woman was not rational. That evening, Barbara called me. "Sarah, I have bad news. Karen filed another complaint petition. This time, she's claiming that Max acted aggressively toward her children." "What?" "That's completely false. The children came to pet Max. Karen drove them away." "I know, Sarah. But Karen filed a written complaint, and according to HOA bylaws, I need to conduct an official investigation." "Investigation? Barbara, this is ridiculous. Karen keeps lying." "I agree with you, but my hands are tied." "Karen knows the procedures. And she's using them? I'm scheduling an HOA meeting next week. You can attend and make your defense." When I hung up the phone, I felt both angry and anxious. Karen wasn't just bullying me, she was manipulating the system, using legal processes for her own malicious purposes. The next day, I requested Max's behavioral evaluation and all his training certifications from my veterinarian. I researched the Americans with Disabilities Act and spoke with a disability rights attorney on the phone. "Ms. Mitchell," the attorney said, Discrimination against service animals is a federal offense. If the HOA tries to force you to remove Max, you have a strong case. But what can I do right now? Document everything. Record every incident. Dates, times, witnesses, keep emails and letters. And stay calm at the HOA meeting. Present the facts. The HOA meeting was scheduled for Tuesday evening at the community center. When that evening arrived, my stomach was in knots. When I entered the meeting room, a dozen neighbors were already seated. Barbara stood at the front table, with the other HOA board members beside her, Mr. Thompson and Mrs. Rodriguez. Karen sat in the front row, arms crossed over her chest, a triumphant expression on her face. Barbara started the meeting. Good evening, everyone. We've called this special meeting to address Ms. Westbrook's complaints about Ms. Mitchell and her service dog. Karen stood up. Thank you, Barbara. I'm here because I care about the safety of our community. Sarah Mitchell's dog is a constant disturbance and a potential danger. Then Karen gave a long speech filled entirely with lies. She claimed Max barked for hours, acted aggressively, and tried to attack children. When she finished speaking, Barbara turned to me. Ms. Mitchell, would you like to make your defense? I took a deep breath and stepped forward. Thank you, Barbara. First, I want to be clear. Max is not just a pet. He's my medically necessary service dog. 3 years ago, I was injured in an accident, and without Max, I cannot manage my daily life. I pulled out the veterinary reports and training certificates and placed them on the table. Here are Max's professional training records, behavioral evaluation, vaccination records, and Americans with Disabilities Act. Compliance certificate. Max has never acted aggressively and rarely makes noise. Mr. Henderson stood up. I've been Sarah's neighbor for 3 years. I see Max every day. That dog is an angel. I've never heard him bark. Karen's claims are lies. Other neighbors supported me too. Mrs. Chun said, Max is the gentlest dog. My grandchildren love him. Karen jumped to her feet. You're all taking her side because you pity her. But I know my rights. This community doesn't allow pets. Barbara calmly responded, Karen, that's not true. Our bylaws allow pets, and federal law explicitly protects service animals. I don't care. That dog has to go. Karen's voice turned into a shriek. Barbara shook her head. Karen, the rules are clear. Sarah has the right to have Max. There's nothing more we can do about this. Karen's face turned purple with rage. If you won't do something, I will. I'll talk to my lawyers. This isn't over. Karen stood up and stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. After the meeting, Barbara came over to me. Sarah, I'm so sorry about this. Dealing with Karen is exhausting. Thanks for your support, Barbara, but I don't think Karen will stop. Barbara sighed deeply. I don't think so either. But don't worry, I'm on your side. When I got home, I felt relieved. The community had supported me. Barbara was on my side. Maybe Karen would finally give up. But the next morning, I found a cease and desist letter on my door. Karen had hired a lawyer. Karen's attorney had sent me an official notice, giving me 30 days to remove Max, or we'd go to court. But I hadn't thought she'd go this far, and I would soon learn that Karen's plans were much darker than just taking Max away. Do you think Karen will really go to court? Or does she have another plan? Share your thoughts in the comments. The cease and desist letter sat on my kitchen table like a coiled snake. Karen's attorney, Gregory Walsh from Walsh & Associates, had given me 30 days to voluntarily rehome. Max or face legal action for violating community standards and HOA regulations. The letter was printed on expensive letterhead, full of legal jargon designed to intimidate. It claimed Max constituted a persistent public nuisance, that his presence materially interfered with the quiet enjoyment of neighboring properties, and that I was in flagrant violation of established community covenants. Every word was carefully chosen to sound official and threatening, but as I read it for the third time, my hands shaking. I noticed something. Not once did the letter mention the Americans with Disabilities Act. Not once did it acknowledge that Max was a legally protected service animal. It was as if federal law didn't exist. I called my disability rights attorney, Marcus Chun, immediately. He answered on the second ring. "Sarah, what's wrong?" he asked, hearing the stress in my voice. "Karen hired a lawyer. They sent me a cease and desist." I read him the letter word for word. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then I heard him typing on his keyboard. "Interesting. Gregory Walsh. I've heard of him. He usually handles real estate disputes and HOA enforcement. He's not a disability rights specialist, which explains why this letter is so poorly constructed from a legal standpoint." "What do you mean?" "Sarah, this letter is pure intimidation with zero legal merit," Marcus explained. "They have no grounds whatsoever. The Americans with Disabilities Act is federal law. It supersedes HOA bylaws, community covenants, and certainly private legal threats. Max is a legitimate service animal with proper documentation, professional training certifications, and medical necessity documentation from your doctors. Any attempt to force you to remove him would constitute disability discrimination under federal law." "So what do I do?" "Nothing right now. I'll draft a response letter. We'll make it crystal clear that any attempt to remove Max would expose both Karen and her attorney to significant legal liability under the AD. We'll cite the relevant federal statutes, case law, and penalties. Trust me, once Walsh realizes the legal exposure he's facing, he'll advise his client to back down immediately. No competent attorney wants to be on the wrong side of a federal discrimination case." Marcus's confidence reassured me somewhat, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen wouldn't give up so wisely. She'd already shown she was willing to lie to the police, harass me publicly, and manipulate HOA procedures. Why would a lawyer's letter stop her? I was right to be worried. Over the next 2 weeks, Karen's harassment campaign escalated to truly terrifying levels. It was as if my attorney's response letter, which Marcus sent 3 days after receiving Walsh's cease and desist, had ignited something dangerous in her. She wasn't just angry anymore. She was obsessed. The police report started on a Wednesday afternoon. I was in my home office, working on a freelance graphic design project, when someone knocked loudly on my front door. Max alerted me with a soft woof, his way of telling me someone was there without actually barking. When I opened the door, 2 uniformed officers stood on my porch, Officer Martinez, who I'd met before, and his partner, Officer Kim. "Ma'am, we received a complaint about your dog attacking a neighbor," Officer Martinez said, his tone professional but apologetic. He knew this was likely another false report. My heart dropped into my stomach. "That's impossible. Max has been with me all day. He hasn't been outside except for our morning walk at 7 a.m., and we were only gone for 20 minutes. The rest of the day, he's been right here beside me." Officer Martinez glanced at his notepad. The complainant claims the attack occurred approximately 30 minutes ago. Around 2:15 p.m., she says your dog jumped her fence and bit her on the arm. "That's absolutely false," I said, feeling panic rising in my chest. "Max can't jump fences. He's a service dog, not an attack animal. And he's been right here with me. I can show you my computer logs. I've been on video calls all afternoon." Officer Martinez looked at Max, who sat calmly beside my wheelchair, his tail wagging gently as he watched the officers with curious, friendly eyes. "Is this the dog in question?" "Yes, sir." Officer Kim, a younger woman with kind eyes, knelt down and extended her hand slowly toward Max. He gently sniffed her fingers, then licked them once before sitting back on his haunches, his tail still wagging. She smiled and scratched behind his ears. "This dog couldn't attack anyone if he tried," she said, looking up at her partner. "He's clearly a well-trained service animal. Look at his demeanor, his response to strangers, his body language. This is textbook service dog behavior." Officer Martinez nodded. "I agree. False report." He looked at me sympathetically. "Who filed the complaint, if I may ask?" "Actually, you can," I said. "I need to know who's making these false accusations against my dog." Officer Martinez checked his notes. Karen Westbrook. She lives at 124 Riverside Drive, right across the street from you. Of course she did, I said bitterly. I explained the entire situation to both officers, the HOA complaints, the harassment, the lawyer's letter, Karen's campaign against Max. They listened carefully, taking notes. Senora Mitchell, I'm going to document this conversation in our report, Officer Martinez said. This report will be marked as unfounded. If Ms. Westbrook continues filing false reports, that itself becomes a crime. Keep documenting everything. Save emails, letters, take photos or videos if she approaches you. This kind of harassment is unacceptable. Thank you, I said, feeling slightly relieved. I appreciate you being so understanding. Officer Kim gave Max one more pat on the head before standing up. Take care of yourself and keep that good boy safe. But Karen wasn't deterred by having her first police report marked as false. 2 days later, on Friday afternoon, the police came again. Different officers this time. Karen had filed another report claiming Max had been barking aggressively for 3 hours straight that morning. This time, I had proof. I'd been recording audio in my home office all week, ever since the first false report, just in case. I played the recordings for the officers, showing them Max hadn't barked once during the time period, Karen claimed. The officers apologized for bothering me and left, marking that report false as well. 3 days after that, Karen filed a third report, and then a fourth, and then a fifth. Each time, the police came to investigate. Each time, they found nothing. Each time, I had to defend myself and Max against baseless accusations. It was exhausting, humiliating, and terrifying. The constant police presence was wearing on me emotionally and physically. My anxiety was through the roof. I wasn't sleeping well. I'd lost weight because I could barely eat. Every knock on the door made my heart race. And that was exactly what Karen wanted. She was using the police as a weapon to make my life unbearable. Knowing that even though the reports were false, the process of dealing with them was punishment enough. Then, 3 weeks after receiving Karen's lawyer's letter, Barbara called me. Her voice was shaking in a way I'd never heard before. Sarah, I need to see you right away. Can you come to my house? Please, it's urgent. Barbara, what's wrong? Are you okay? No, I'm not okay. Sarah, something terrible has happened. Please come now. I can't discuss this over the phone. Her fear was contagious. I grabbed my keys, called Max to my side, and drove to Barbara's house as quickly as I could. The 20-minute drive felt like an eternity. What could have happened? Was Barbara hurt? Had Karen done something to her? When I arrived at Barbara's modest 2-story colonial home, she was waiting at the door. She looked like she'd aged 10 years since I'd last seen her just a week ago. Her face was pale and drawn, dark circles under her eyes, suggesting she hadn't slept. Her hands trembled visibly as she held a thick manila folder pressed against her chest. Come in, quickly, she said, glancing around nervously as if expecting someone to be watching. We need to talk in private. She led me to a dining room, a cozy space with family photos on the walls and a large oak table in the center. That table was now covered in papers, dozens of documents spread across its surface, like evidence at a crime scene. Sit down, Barbara said quietly, her voice tight with barely controlled emotion. You need to see this. All of it. She opened the manila folder and began spreading more documents across the table. As I looked at them, my blood ran cold. They were HOA documents, bylaws, meeting minutes, voting records, official amendments. But something was wrong with them. Karen submitted these to the HOA board last night during our emergency meeting, Barbara explained, her voice shaking. She claims these are official amendments to our community bylaws that were passed in June of 2020, 3 months before you moved here. According to these documents, service animals are specifically and explicitly prohibited in Riverside Meadows. She says we voted on it, that I signed it, that has been our official policy for over 3 years. But that's impossible, I said. picking up one of the documents and scanning it, that would violate federal law. The ADA protects service animals everywhere, including private communities. You can't just vote to override federal civil rights legislation. Exactly, Barbara said, pointing at the document I was holding, which is why I knew immediately these were fake. But, Sarah, look at them. Really look at them. They're very, very good fakes. I examined the papers more carefully. Barbara was right. The documents looked completely authentic. They had the HOAS official logo. The formatting matched our legitimate bylaws exactly. The language was professional and legalistic. And most disturbingly, they bore signatures: Barbara's signature, Mr. Thompson's signature, Mrs. Rodriguez's signature, and several other board members. "She forged your signatures," I whispered, feeling sick. "All of them," Barbara confirmed. "She forged board members' signatures. She created completely fake meeting minutes with dates, times, voting, tallies, and discussion notes. She even invented fake resident comments supporting the policy. Sarah, this isn't just harassment anymore. This is document fraud. This is forgery. These are serious felonies." Barbara pulled out another document from the folder, this one official looking with a county seal at the top. But here's the real problem. The reason I'm so scared: Karen didn't just show these forged documents to the HOA board. She filed an official complaint with the county government. She's claiming that I, as HOA president, have been negligent in enforcing HOA rules and regulations. She's using these forged documents as evidence. She's trying to get me removed as president, potentially face fines, and she's even threatening to sue me personally for breach of fiduciary duty. "Oh my God," I breathed. "Barbara, I'm so sorry. This is all because of me and Max." "If we hadn't moved here, no," Barbara interrupted firmly, raising her hand to stop me. "Don't you dare apologize. This is not your fault. This is not Max's fault. This is because Karen Westbrook is a criminal. What she's done isn't just harassment or even ordinary fraud. Sarah, she forged legal documents and submitted them in official government proceedings. That's a felony. Multiple felonies. Actually, have you gone to the police yet? I called them this morning. They're sending Detective Sarah Williams from their fraud division tomorrow afternoon to take my statement and collect these documents as evidence. She specializes in forgery and document fraud cases. But Sarah, you need to understand something important. If Karen is willing to commit multiple felonies to get rid of you and Max, I honestly don't know what else she might be capable of doing. You need to be very, very careful." The weight of Barbara's words settled over me like a heavy blanket. She was right. Karen had crossed a line from harassment into serious criminal behavior, and people who cross that line once often keep going further. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Max sensed my anxiety and pressed his warm body close against mine. His usual method of providing comfort when I was distressed, his presence was reassuring, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's attacks were far from over. My intuition proved correct. 2 days later, on a Saturday morning around 10 a.m., I was in my front yard with Max, letting him enjoy the sunshine while I pruned some roses in my garden bed. It was a beautiful, day-clear blue sky, temperature in the mids, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of blooming flowers from neighboring yards. That's when Karen's husband, David, approached me from across the street. I tensed immediately, my hand instinctively reaching for my phone in my pocket. But David looked ... different. His shoulders were slumped, his face pale and drawn with stress. He kept glancing back nervously at his house, as if afraid someone might see him talking to me. "Sarah," he said in a low, urgent voice, "I need to talk to you. Please. Karen doesn't know I'm here. She went to the grocery store and I only have about 20 minutes before she gets back." "Okay, I said cautiously. "What's going on, David?" He came closer, speaking quickly, words tumbling out like he'd been holding them in for too long. "Look, I don't agree with what Karen's doing. I never did, from the very beginning. Max is a wonderful dog, truly, and you've been nothing but kind and respectful to our family. Emma and Jake love Max. They ask about him all the time. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But why are you telling me this now? David's expression grew even more troubled because Karen. She's not well. Mentally? I mean, I've been trying to get her to see a therapist for months, but she refuses. She says there's nothing wrong with her, that everyone else is the problem, and lately she's become ... obsessed. Completely obsessed with getting rid of you and Max. It's all she talks about. It's all she thinks about. I know she's been harassing me, I said. The police reports, the lawyer, the forged HOA documents. It's worse than that, David interrupted, pulling out his phone with shaking hands. Last night, I heard her on the phone with someone. I don't know who. She was in her home office with the door closed. But I could hear her through the wall. Sarah, she was talking about hurting Max. Actually hurting him, she said. And I quote, "If legal methods won't work, I'll handle it myself. That dog will be gone one way or another." Terror flooded through my body. She threatened to hurt my dog. I recorded it, David said, his voice barely above a whisper. He showed me his phone screen. I started recording our conversations weeks ago because I was afraid of what she might do, afraid I might need evidence someday. I didn't know what else to do. She's my wife, and I love her, but this is wrong. This is so wrong. He played the recording for me. Karen's voice came through clearly, cold and calculating. If legal methods won't work, I'll handle it myself. That dog will be gone one way or another. I don't care what it takes. She thinks she can just ignore me. She'll learn. They'll both learn. My hands trembled as I listened. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a direct threat. Can you send me that recording? I asked. David nodded quickly and typed on his phone. I'm sending it to your email right now. Sarah, please, take this to the police. I know she's my wife, but I can't let her hurt an innocent animal, and I'm worried about what might happen to you, too. When Karen gets like this, when she fixates on something, she doesn't stop. She doesn't think about consequences. I'll take it to them today, I promised. David, thank you for telling me. This couldn't have been easy. I have to go, he said, glancing nervously at his watch. She'll be back soon. Please, don't tell her I talked to you. I'm trying to protect my kids through all of this. They don't understand what's happening, why their mother has become so angry all the time. David hurried back across the street, disappearing into his house just as Karen's silver SUV turned onto our street. I watched her pull into her driveway, unload grocery bags, and go inside. She never looked in my direction, but I could feel the tension radiating from her house like heat waves. I immediately called Officer Martinez, who had become familiar with my situation after responding to Karen's multiple false police reports. I explained about David's visit and the recording. Ms. Mitchell, this recording constitutes a credible criminal threat, Officer Martinez said gravely after listening to it, combined with the forged documents Barbara reported and the pattern of false police reports. We now have grounds for serious criminal charges. I'm going to refer this case to our detective unit immediately and request they expedite the investigation. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you install security cameras if you haven't already, and be very careful about letting Max outside unsupervised. I will thank you, officer. That afternoon, I installed 4 security cameras around my property, 1 covering the front door, 1 on the back door, and 2 covering my yard where Max usually spent time. The cameras had motion detection and would alert my phone immediately if anyone approached my property. It turned out to be a very wise decision. 3 days later, my security cameras caught something that would change everything. At 2:30 in the morning, a figure had approached my fence, carrying something in their hand. When I reviewed the footage the next morning, my blood ran cold. HOA Karen. And what she was trying to do to Max was beyond anything I could have imagined. What do you think Karen was planning to do? How far will she go to get rid of Max? Share your predictions in the comments. The notification on my phone buzzed at 2:43 in the morning. I jerked awake, heart pounding. As the security app flashed, motion detected, backyard camera Max lifted his head from where he slept on his bed beside mine, sensing my sudden alertness. With shaking hands, I opened the app and pulled up the live feed. The camera's night vision showed my backyard in grainy green-tinted clarity. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, a figure moved into frame, approaching my fence from the alley behind my property. It was Karen. She wore dark clothing and a baseball cap pulled low, clearly trying to conceal her identity. But I'd recognize that, walk anywhere, that distinctive way she held her shoulders rigid with determination. She kept glancing around nervously, checking to make sure no one was watching. In her right hand, she carried something. As she got closer to the camera, I could see it more clearly, a plastic container, like a Tupperware bowl. She approached the section of my fence where Max's water bowl sat just on the other side, visible from the alley. My blood turned to ice as I watched her reach through the fence slats. She was trying to access Max's water bowl. The camera angle wasn't perfect, but I could see her tilting the container, pouring something into the bowl. Then she quickly withdrew her hand and hurried back the way she'd come, disappearing into the darkness. I sat frozen in bed for a long moment, my mind struggling to process what I'd just witnessed. Then training and instinct kicked in. I grabbed my phone and called 911. 911? What's your emergency? Someone just trespassed on my property, and I believe they poisoned my service dog's water bowl. I have video evidence. This person has been threatening my dog and has a history of harassment. My voice was surprisingly steady despite the terror coursing through me. Are you in immediate danger, ma'am? No? The person left. But I need police here immediately. My dog cannot go outside until that water bowl is secured as evidence. Officers are on their way. Stay on the line with me. 2 patrol cars arrived within 8 minutes. Officer Martinez and 3 other officers I didn't recognize. I met them at my front door, still in my pajamas, and immediately showed them the security footage on my phone. That's Karen Westbrook, Officer Martinez said grimly. I recognize her from the previous calls. This is escalation. This is serious. One of the other officers, a woman with Sergeant Davis on her nameplate, took charge. We need to secure that water bowl immediately as evidence. Don't let your dog near it. We'll also need to collect the security footage. Do you have it backed up to the cloud? Yes. Everything automatically uploads. I can give you access to the account. The officers went into my backyard with flashlights and evidence collection kits. I watched from my back door, holding Max close to me. He whined softly, sensing something was wrong but not understanding what. Sergeant Davis photographed the water bowl from multiple angles before carefully collecting it and sealing it in an evidence bag. The water inside had a slightly cloudy appearance that wasn't normal. We're taking this to the lab first thing in the morning, she told me. Priority testing. Given the video evidence and the threat history, the district attorney is going to want this case prosecuted aggressively. What happens now? I asked. Officer Martinez answered, We're going to Karen Westbrook's house right now to question her. With video evidence this clear, and given the previous complaints and threats, we have probable cause. Detective Williams from our fraud unit has been building a case against her already. This is going to be the final piece. Will you arrest her tonight? Part of me wanted that, so badly wanted Karen behind bars, where she couldn't hurt Max. But another part of me thought about Emma and Jake, her children, being woken up to see their mother arrested. That depends on her cooperation and what we find when we talk to her, Sergeant Davis said. But Ms. Mitchell, one way or another, this ends tonight. She's not going to hurt your dog. I promise you that. After the police left, I couldn't go back to sleep. I sat on my couch with Max, both of us watching the windows, jumping at every sound. Around 4:30 a.m., I saw lights flashing across the street. More police cars at Karen's house. Through my front window, I watched officers knock on Karen's door. Lights came on inside the house. After several minutes, the door opened. I couldn't hear what was being said, but I could see Karen's silhouette in the doorway, her posture defensive. The conversation appeared tense. Then Karen tried to close the door. An officer's hand stopped it. More officers approached. Karen's voice rose. I could hear her screaming now. though I couldn't make out the words. Then she tried to push past the officers, and they responded by restraining her. Within seconds, Karen was in handcuffs. She struggled and screamed as they led her toward a patrol car. "This is illegal! You can't do this! I'll sue all of you!" That woman and her filthy dog ruined my life. She deserves everything that's coming to her. David appeared in the doorway, holding Emma and Jake back. Both children were crying, reaching for their mother. The scene was heartbreaking. Whatever Karen had done, those kids didn't deserve this trauma. As the patrol car pulled away with Karen inside, still screaming, David looked across the street. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and nodded once a small, sad acknowledgement, then gently guided his children back inside and closed the door. The next morning, Detective Sarah Williams called me at 8 a.m. sharp. "Ms. Mitchell, I wanted to update you personally. Karen Westbrook was arrested early this morning and charged with multiple felonies: criminal trespass, attempted destruction of service animal property, forgery in the first degree, fraud, filing false police reports, and criminal threatening. She's being held without bail pending arraignment." "What about the water bowl? Did the lab test it yet?" "We expedited the testing. The results came back an hour ago. The water contained a lethal concentration of antifreeze mixed with rat poison. If Max had drunk from that bowl, he would have died within hours." Painfully, my hand flew to my mouth. I felt like I might be sick. Max, sensing my distress, pressed his head against my leg. "Ms. Mitchell, are you still there?" "Yes. I'm sorry. Just, I can't believe someone would actually try to murder my dog. Karen Westbrook is being charged with attempted animal cruelty resulting in death, which is a felony in our state. Combined with the federal charges for attempting to destroy a service animal, she's facing very serious prison time. The U.S. Attorney's Office is also reviewing the case for federal prosecution. Federal charges. Yes. Under federal law, deliberately harming a service animal is a crime. So is disability discrimination. The combination of forged documents, harassment, and attempted murder of your service dog constitutes a clear pattern of disability-based hate crimes. The FBI's Civil Rights Division has been notified. Over the next 3 weeks, more details emerged about Karen's activities. Detective Williams kept me informed throughout the investigation, and what they discovered was stunning. The forged HOA documents were just the beginning. When police searched Karen's home with a warrant, they found her entire home office dedicated to her obsession with removing me and Max from the neighborhood. She had folders full of printed articles about service dog laws, notes on how to challenge service animal certifications, draft legal documents, and even a journal where she'd been documenting her plans. The journal entries were disturbing. They started relatively mild complaints about Max barking, notes about when we went for walks, but quickly escalated into violent fantasies. One entry from 2 weeks before her arrest read, "If the law won't help me, I'll take matters into my own hands. That dog will be gone, whatever it takes." But the most shocking discovery came when investigators dug into Karen's background. It turned out this wasn't the first time she'd harassed neighbors. In their previous neighborhood, before moving to Riverside Meadows, Karen had been involved in a similar situation. A family with an autistic child had moved in next door. The child sometimes made loud noises and had behavioral outbursts. Karen had launched a campaign to get them evicted, filing noise complaints, calling Child Protective Services with false reports of neglect, and ultimately slashing the family's car tires. The family had pressed charges, but Karen's lawyer had gotten her a plead anger management classes and probation. David had convinced the family that Karen was sorry, that she'd get help, that they should move to a new neighborhood for a fresh start. But Karen hadn't gotten help. She'd just gotten better at hiding her behavior until she'd fixated on me and Max. Barbara came over one afternoon, about 2 weeks after Karen's arrest, bringing homemade cookies and looking more relaxed than I'd seen her in months. The county dropped their investigation into me, she told me happily. Once they saw the evidence that Karen forged those documents, they apologized profusely. They're actually considering bringing additional charges against her for filing false governmental reports. I'm so glad. Barbara, you didn't deserve any of that. Neither did you, Sarah. Neither did Max. She reached down to pet Max, who wagged his tail enthusiastically. You know, in 30 years of HOA work, I've dealt with all kinds of difficult residents, but I've never seen anyone as malicious and calculating as Karen Westbrook. She's truly dangerous. Have you heard anything about her family? David and the kids. Barbara nodded. David filed for divorce 3 days after Karen's arrest. He's seeking full custody of Emma and Jake. From what I've heard through the neighborhood grapevine, he's been apologizing to everyone Karen harassed. He's putting the house up for sale. He told Mr. Henderson that he needs to get the kids somewhere they can start over, away from all of this. Those poor children, I said softly. They're the real victims in all of this. They are, but David seems like a good father. He'll help them through it. And honestly, they're probably better off without Karen's influence. From what David told Mr. Henderson, Karen had been becoming increasingly controlling and paranoid over the years. This situation with you and Max just brought it to a head. Karen's arraignment was scheduled for a Monday morning in late August. Marcus Chun, my attorney, encouraged me to attend. The prosecutor wants you there, he explained. Karen's attorney is going to try to paint you as the aggressor, claim Karen was defending her property values or some nonsense. They need the judge to see you, see that you're a real person who was terrorized by this woman. So I went. Barbara came with me for support, and so did Mr. Henderson and Mrs. Chun. We sat in the gallery as Karen was brought into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her. She looked terrible. Her platinum blonde hair was greasy and pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her face was pale and drawn, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me sitting in the gallery, her expression twisted with rage. "This is your fault," she screamed at me, lunging forward. The bailiffs grabbed her immediately. "You ruined my life. You and your disgusting dog. I hope you're happy." "Ms. Westbrook, control yourself," Judge Patricia Morrison snapped. "One more outburst, and you'll be held in contempt." Karen's attorney, a tired-looking public defender named Michael Ross, tried to argue for bail. "Your Honor, my client is a mother of 2 with no prior violent convictions. She has strong ties to the community. She has a prior conviction for harassment and vandalism." The prosecutor, Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Park, interrupted. "She violated probation from that case. She forged legal documents, filed false police reports, threatened witnesses, and attempted to murder a federally protected service animal. She poses a clear danger to Ms. Mitchell and to the community at large." Judge Morrison reviewed the case file, her expression growing darker as she read. Finally, she looked up. "Ms. Westbrook, I've reviewed the evidence against you, the video surveillance, the lab results, the forged documents, the threatening communications. This is one of the most egregious cases of harassment and attempted animal cruelty I've seen in my 20 years on the bench. You deliberately targeted a disabled woman and her medically necessary service animal. You committed multiple felonies in pursuit of this vendetta bile. Is denied. You will remain in custody pending trial." Karen's face crumbled. She started crying, loud, ugly sobs. "Please, Your Honor, my children need me. I made mistakes, but I'm not a monster. Please, don't take me away from my babies. You should have thought about your children before you tried to poison an innocent animal," Judge Morrison said coldly. "Your children are with their father, who by all accounts is a responsible parent. They'll be fine without you." "Bailiff, remove the defendant." As the bailiffs led Karen away, still crying, she turned back one last time to glare at me. The hatred in her eyes was chilling. Eben defeated, even facing years in prison. She still blamed me for everything. Outside the courthouse, Ada Park approached me. "Ms. Mitchell, I wanted to talk to you about the trial." Karen's attorney approached me about a plea deal. She'd plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a recommendation of 10 years, with possibility of parole after 7. "What do you think I should do?" "Honestly, I think we should reject it and go to trial. The evidence is overwhelming. With the video footage, the lab results, the forged documents, and her prior conviction, I'm confident we can get a conviction on all charges. She's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum." But it's your decision. You're the victim here. I thought about Emma and Jake, about them visiting their mother in prison for the next 20 years. But then I thought about Max, about how close I'd come to losing him, about the terror Karen had put me through 4 months, about Barbara and all the other neighbors Karen had harassed. Take it to trial. Primera, Saeed firmly. People like Karen need to face the full consequences of their actions. Otherwise, they never learn. Ada Park smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. We're going to make sure Karen Westbrook never hurts anyone again. The trial date was set for October 5th, but as the investigation deepened, prosecutors discovered something that would shock everyone. Karen's harassment of me was connected to a much larger criminal conspiracy. And the person she'd been talking to on the phone that night, they were about to make everything much, much worse. Who do you think Karen was working with? What bigger conspiracy could she be involved in? Drop your theories in the comments below. The phone call came from Ada Jennifer Park on a Tuesday morning in early September, 3 weeks before Karen's trial was scheduled to begin. Her voice carried an edge of excitement I hadn't heard before. Sarah, we need to meet. Today, if possible. Something major has developed in Karen's case, and you need to hear this in person. What happened? My stomach clenched with anxiety. Is Karen out on bail? Did something go wrong? No, nothing like that. Actually, it's quite the opposite. The FBI's investigation uncovered something much bigger than we initially thought. Can you come to my office at 2 o'clock? Bring your attorney if you'd like. At 2 o'clock sharp, I sat in Ada Park's office with Marcus Chun beside me. Also present was FBI Special Agent Robert Torres, a serious-looking man in his mid-40s wearing a dark suit and carrying a thick file folder. Thank you for coming, Ms. Mitchell. Agent Torres began opening his folder. What I'm about to tell you is part of an ongoing federal investigation, but you have a right to know, since you're the primary victim in this case. He spread several documents across the conference table: bank statements, wire transfer records, email printouts, and what looked like surveillance photos. When we began investigating Karen Westbrook for disability-based hate crimes and attempted destruction of federal property or service dog, we naturally looked into her financial records and communications. What we found was unexpected. Agent Torres pointed to a series of wire transfers. Over the past 18 months, Karen received regular payments totaling approximately $75,000 from an organization called the Property Rights Defense League. Are you familiar with this group? I shook my head. Never heard of them. Most people haven't, Agent Torres continued. They operate quietly, funding what they call community preservation efforts. In reality, they're an extremist organization that targets people they view as undesirable neighbors. They've been connected to harassment campaigns against families with disabled children, elderly residents in assisted living situations. And yes, people with service animals. My blood ran cold. You're saying Karen was paid to harass me? Not exactly. Karen contacted them first. According to emails we recovered from her computer, she reached out to the Property Rights Defense League about 6 months after you moved to Riverside Meadows. She complained about your service dog, claimed you were lowering property values. They saw an opportunity and offered to support her advocacy efforts. They provided money for legal fees, taught her how to forge documents convincingly, connected her with sympathetic attorneys, and even gave her detailed instructions on escalating her harassment campaign while avoiding immediate legal consequences. Ada Park leaned forward. Sarah, Karen wasn't acting alone. She had coaching, resources, and financial backing from a national hate group. The person she was talking to on the phone when David recorded her, that was Marcus Webb, the Property Rights Defense League's Director of Operations. He's the one who suggested she poison Max's water. I felt sick. Why would anyone create an organization like that? Money and ideology, Agent Torres said bluntly. They're funded by wealthy donors who want to keep their neighborhoods exclusive. They particularly target communities with strict HOA rules, encouraging residents to weaponize those rules against people with disabilities, minorities, and anyone they view as different. They've been connected to over 40 harassment cases across 12 states in the past 5 years. How does this affect Karen's trial? Marcus asked, and Diapok's expression grew serious. Karen's attorney contacted us this morning. She wants to cooperate. She's willing to testify against Marcus Webb and the Property Rights Defense League in exchange for a reduced sentence. She pled guilty to all charges and provide evidence about the organization's operations, funding sources, and other cases they've been involved in. What kind of reduced sentence? I asked quietly. 12 years with possibility of parole after 8th HOA Parkside. I know that might seem light, given what she put you through, but Seta, her testimony could help us take down an organization that's been terrorizing disabled people across the country for years. The FBI believes this case could lead to federal racketeering charges against the entire Property Rights Defense League leadership. I sat back in my chair, processing everything. Part of me wanted Karen to face the maximum sentence, to pay fully for every moment of terror she'd put me through. But another part understood that her cooperation could protect countless other people. What do you think I should do? I asked Marcus. My attorney considered for a moment. Legally, it's your choice. But personally, I think 12 years is substantial time. And if Karen's testimony can prevent this from happening to other people with service animals, that's meaningful. You'd be helping more than just yourself. I looked at Agent Torres. If I agree to this, will the Property Rights Defense League actually be shut down? With Karen's testimony, the financial records we've obtained, and testimony from other victims we've identified, we have a strong case. The leadership will face serious federal charges. At minimum, we'll dismantle their operations. I took a deep breath and looked down at Max, who sat quietly beside my wheelchair. He looked back at me with trusting brown eyes, tail wagging gently. Okay, I said finally, I'll agree to the plea deal, but I want to be at the sentencing. I want Karen to hear directly from me how much damage she caused. Absolutely, Ada Park said. You'll have the opportunity to give a victim impact statement. Karen's plea hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later, in late September. The courtroom was packed. Barbara came, as did Mr. Henderson, Mrs. Chun, and several other neighbors from Riverside Meadows. David wasn't there, and the kids had already moved out of state. But he'd sent a letter to the court describing the toll Karen's obsession had taken on their family. Several FBI agents were also present, watching Karen carefully as she was brought into the courtroom. She looked different than at her arraignment. Thinner, older, defeated. When she saw me, she looked away immediately, unable to meet my eyes. Judge Morrison reviewed the plea agreement carefully. Ms. Westbrook, you understand that by accepting this plea, you're admitting guilt to all charges. Forgery, fraud, criminal trespass, attempted animal cruelty, filing false police reports, and conspiracy to violate civil rights. Yes, Your Honor, Karen said quietly, her voice barely audible. And you understand that your sentence will be 12 years in federal prison with possibility of parole after 8 years, contingent on your full cooperation with the FBI's investigation. Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Mitchell, would you like to present your victim impact statement? I wheeled forward to the microphone, Max walking calmly beside me. I'd spent days preparing what I wanted to say, but now, looking at Karen hunched over the defense table, I kept it simple. Karen, I began, and she flinched at my voice. For months, you made my life a living hell. You tried to take away Max, the one being who makes it possible for me to live independently. You filed false police reports. You forged documents. You poisoned his water bowl. You wanted him dead, and you didn't care that losing him would have destroyed me. Karen's shoulders shook. She was crying, but I didn't stop. I have nightmares now. Every time I hear a noise outside, I panic. Every time someone approaches us on walks, I'm afraid. You took away my sense of safety in my own home. That damage might never fully heal. But here's what you need to understand. You didn't just hurt me. You hurt your own family. Emma and Jake lost their mother because of your choices. David lost his wife. Your neighbors lost trust in their community. Barbara nearly lost her position because of your lies. I paused. And all of this destruction was because you couldn't accept that I had a service dog, because you couldn't tolerate someone different living near you. That's not just criminal, Karen. It's pathetic. I hope you spend every day of your 12 years in prison thinking about what you did. I hope you get the help you need, and I hope that when you get out, you've learned that people with disabilities have just as much right to live peacefully as anyone else. I wheeled back to my seat. The courtroom was silent. Ms. Westbrook, Judge Morrison said. Do you have anything to say? Karen stood shakily. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. Sarah, you're right. Everything you said is right. I was wrong. The property rights people made it seem like I was doing the right thing, protecting the neighborhood. But I wasn't. I was hurting an innocent person and an innocent animal. I'm sorry. Judge Morrison imposed the sentence. Ms. Westbrook, you will serve 12 years in federal prison. I'm recommending you be placed in a facility with mental health resources. I hope you use this time to become a better person. Court is adjourned. The bailiffs led Karen away. She looked back once at me, tears streaming down her face, and mouthed, I'm sorry one more time. Then she was gone. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The case was attracting national attention because of the Property Rights Defense League connection. I gave a brief statement about disability rights and the importance of protecting service animals, then headed home. Barbara hugged me before she left. You did good in there, Sarah. You stood up for yourself and for every other person with a disability who's ever been harassed like this. I'm proud of you. Thank you for everything. Barbara, for believing me, for supporting me, for fighting alongside me. That's what neighbors do, she said with a smile. Real neighbors. Anyway, over the following months, the FBI's investigation bore fruit. Using Karen's testimony and financial records, they arrested Marcus Webb and 4 other organization leaders. All 5 were eventually convicted on federal racketeering and civil rights violation charges, receiving sentences ranging from 15 to 25 years. The organization's assets were seized and distributed to victims. I received a settlement of $30,000, which I donated to service dog training organizations and disability rights advocacy groups. David sent me a letter from Colorado. He apologized profusely for Karen's actions and thanked me for agreeing to the plea deal. He enclosed photos of Emma and Jake with their new rescue dog. Emma had named him Max too. Life in Riverside Meadows slowly returned to normal. A nice family moved into Karen's old house. When they saw Max, their faces lit up. Oh, what a beautiful dog, the mother said. Our kids would love to meet him sometime. That would be wonderful, I said, and meant it. 1 year after Karen's sentencing, I was invited to speak at a disability rights conference in Washington, D.C. They wanted me to share my story about protecting service animal rights and standing up against discrimination. I almost declined talking about Karen, was still painful. But then I thought about all the other people with service animals who might face similar harassment. So, primera acepte. I stood on that stage with Max beside me, in front of 200 disability rights advocates, and told my story, all of it. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. Several people came up afterward with tears in their eyes, telling me about their own experiences, thanking me for speaking out. You gave us hope, one woman said. She had a service dog, too, a German Shepherd named Luna. You showed us that we can fight back. That's when I realized everything Karen had put me through, as terrible as it was, had a purpose. My experience could help others. My story could make a difference. I started a blog about disability rights and service animal advocacy. It gained followers, quickly other people with disabilities, sharing their stories, offering support, providing resources for fighting discrimination. The blog grew into a non-profit organization. We now help people with service animals navigate legal challenges and advocate for stronger protections under federal law. Max became something of a celebrity in the disability rights community. His photos appeared in articles about service animal protection laws. Children at disability events would line up to meet him. He handled it all with his usual calm grace. 2 years after Karen's conviction, I received a letter from her. It had been forwarded through her attorney. The letter was long, handwritten on prison stationery. Karen wrote about her therapy sessions, about understanding how her need for control had destroyed her life. She wrote about missing Emma and Jake, about the guilt keeping her awake at night. At the end, she wrote, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I think about you and Max every day. I'm genuinely glad you're doing well and that you've turned this horrible experience into something positive. You're a better person than I ever was." I read the letter 3 times, then folded it and put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to forgive Karen yet. Maybe I never would be, but at least she seemed to understand the gravity of what she'd done. 5 years have passed now since that terrifying night when Karen tried to poison Max's water bowl. Max is 7 years old, still working as my service dog, still the most important being in my life. He's graying around the muzzle a bit, but he's as devoted and capable as ever. I still live in Riverside Meadows. Barbara is still HOA president. We have coffee every Sunday. The neighborhood has become truly welcoming, a model of inclusivity that other communities look to for inspiration. Sometimes, late at night, I still have nightmares about Karen at my fence, pouring poison into Max's water bowl. I wake up in a cold sweat, and Max is always there, pressing his warm body against mine, reminding me that we're safe now, because we did win, not just the legal case, but something bigger. We proved that people with disabilities won't be silent, won't be intimidated, won't accept discrimination. We proved that service animals are protected for a reason. We proved that, hey, no matter how well-funded or organized, can be defeated. Last month, I received an email from Emma. She's 16 now, a junior in high school. She wrote that she and Jake want to volunteer with my nonprofit when they're old enough. She said they want to help other people with disabilities because they understand now how important service animals are and how wrong their mother was. That email made me cry not from sadness, but from hope. I look at Max now, sleeping peacefully in his bed. He has no idea how much he means to me, how much he's changed my life, how many lives he's indirectly helped through the advocacy work he inspired. Karen tried to take him from me. She tried to destroy the partnership that makes my independence possible. She failed. And in failing, she exposed a nationwide network of bigots. She inadvertently created a movement for stronger service animal protections. She unintentionally gave me a purpose beyond myself. Sometimes the universe works in mysterious ways. Sometimes our greatest challenges become our greatest opportunities. Karen Westbrook will be eligible for parole in 3 more years. I don't know if I'll attend that hearing or if I'll support her release. But it doesn't matter anymore. She can't hurt me. She can't hurt Max. She can't hurt any of the thousands of people with service animals who now have stronger legal protections because of what happened to us. We survived, we thrived, and we made sure that what happened to us helps prevent it from happening to others. That's not just justice. That's victory. Karen Westbrook is serving 12 years in federal prison. The Property Rights Defense League was dismantled with 5 leaders convicted. Sarah Mitchell continues her disability rights advocacy work with Max, now 7 years old. For following this incredible journey, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more real-life justice stories.